Hello, I'm Ross Tayler, your host and guide for Sacred Sundays, a space to slow down, tune in, and return to what's sacred within and around you. I'm also a life coach for empaths and sensitive souls, walking alongside those who are ready to come home to who they actually are. These conversations are part of fulfilling that purpose, a collective exploration of what it means to live in connection with the sacred. Some weeks you'll hear a sound-based offering to open the space. Other times we'll simply begin in conversation. However it unfolds, this is an invitation into presence, connection, and the beauty of the unseen. If these conversations find you, please subscribe, rate, and share so others can find their way here. Pour a cup of tea, settle in, and let's begin. Today on Sacred Sundays, our guest is Alanna Brennan. Alanna is a sound healer, voice coach, and somatic guide. She teaches people to connect to their bodies through their voice and find their authentic power in the process. Alanna is the founder of Womb Reclamation, where she blends ancient wisdom with modern pain science to support those who are ready to journey inward into their own bodies to find answers inside themselves. Welcome, Alanna. So good to have you.
Thank you, Ross. Thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, I'm excited for our conversation as well. And I believe you're going to begin by guiding us through a short grounding exercise.
Yeah, I think I would love to just take a minute to drop into our bodies. As you introduced, that is where all the answers lie. So we're just going to take a minute to drop into the body and the breath. Often in our daily life, it's so busy and hectic, we'll start breathing from our chest, our shoulders, because we're stressed. And so I'm going to invite the listeners to take a really deep belly breath. And one thing I like to do to make sure that I'm actually breathing from my stomach is put my thumbs on my belly button and my fingers pointing down, so I'm making an upside down triangle. And when I breathe, you want to feel the expansion from that area. And that's how you know you're taking a really deep belly breath. So let's all breathe in together and breathe out as slowly as we can. One more time, breathing in and breathing out slowly. And as you breathe out, you can imagine that you are melting butter so that your muscles are softening and relaxing in your pelvis. Breathing in and breathing out, you're melting that butter as the air leaves your belly. Continue that pattern, breathing in. And on the out breath, I want you to notice that air coming all the way up through your stomach, through your chest, out your throat, and out your mouth. Connecting your two centers of creation, the sacral and the throat. Our forces of life, our forces of creation. Take another deep breath in, and on the out breath, I'm going to invite you to add a gentle hum. So breathing in from the lower belly and out gently. And as you do that, you should feel the sound activating all the way from your sacrum, up your spine, out your throat, and your face. Let's try one more time. And to close and to lock it in, we will do one final hum together.
Thank you. That was great. I had a fairly busy morning and day, and it was nice to have that pause. So thank you for that. It's a great way to start our conversation.
It's a great way to ground. And, there's so many guided meditations and breath work, but adding the sound in can just be that extra layer. I had a teacher once tell me, think of your grocery list in your head. Got all these things. I got to get apples. I got to get eggs. I got to get milk. Then start to hum and try to think of your grocery list. And it gets more difficult because it brings you back into the body and out of the mind.
Mm-hmm.
So it is just, for me, been the most powerful way to drop into the meditative state when my mind can be too busy for just the visualization meditations or just the breath. It adds an extra layer. Yeah.
I facilitate laughter circles, and we actually do humming after the laughter to bring us back into center as well. It's great.
And laughter is sound, right? And laughter is the sound of joy. So that's an amazing, that we're basically teaching the body, or like bringing the body into the state that we want to be in, right? Like, so if you're doing a laughter circle or a sound circle, it's that idea that we have conscious control. So we think that everything happens in the brain, but actually your body is talking to your brain and telling your brain what state you're in. And so through breath work, through laughter, through sound, through consciously taking control back, we can tell the brain, hey, I'm good. So I love that.
Yeah, it's actually flipped to what we would think. Like the mind, we think it's the main source of everything, but it's actually the body. It's from the bottom up, not the top down.
Yeah, we have gray matter in our gut that talks to our brain, matter in our heart. We've been told that the brain is the epicenter, and it is hugely important, but, it's the same as our planet. We can't say that one region dominates the whole ecosystem of the earth. Everything is working together. So it's bringing that ancient wisdom back in. It's all connected.
What would you say about sound helping us to connect back to our inner strength, our power, our creativity?
So for me, on my journey and through Womb Reclamation, what I am teaching is that we have two centers of creation as humans. So our sacral pelvic region, whether you're born biologically male or female, that's how you procreate and bring life into the world. And then we have the throat center, which creates sound. And it's how we communicate ideas, which are our creations, into the world. When we're little embryos, our ovaries or testes, when you're an embryo, really, really small, maybe not determined yet, but we've got the ovaries and testes and the vocal cords, and they're actually one area that then grows through a channel and develops into two different things. How can we tell that? Well, what happens when you go through puberty? Your voice changes. What happens when a woman gives birth? She makes noise. What happens during sex? We make noise. I had a male come up to me at an event recently and told me that after he got his tubes or his vasectomy, that his voice changed. So they are so tied together. And so when we talk about creative power, reclaiming the voice is also reclaiming, our creative power in our sacral, and vice versa. So the one affects the other. They both run on the same system of fascia and the vagus nerve. If you go to a body worker, they'll often tell you or show you how the jaw mirrors the pelvis and how stress in one can affect the other. So that is what I teach, and that's what I'm really passionate about, and that's what's been helping me heal from a bunch of trauma. And for so many generations, it's been children should be seen and not heard. We've been so repressed in our authentic voice. And we're finally getting to this time in humanity where it feels safe enough, where we have enough space to start exploring like who we really are, and not just what we're here to do or how we're here to serve our family or our job or anything like that.
All of what you said just makes me think of so many things. And one of them is that I think that I study human design, and that connection between the sacral and the throat is very present for many of the types in human design. And it's reminding me of, like, for many of us, we get the yes or no about sharing our creativity with the world from our sacral center, speaking from that center through our voice. And I had someone that I was doing a reading for once make the comment, wow, I have a lot of unspoken no's in my sacral center. And obviously that's like because of trauma and saying yes to things that were actually no's. And it really, when I heard that, it was really not surprising, but really sad. And that's what gets in the way of expressing our creativity as much as it is anything else. And so what you were saying speaks to that. And it's huge because we are creative beings and we're here to share not only our voice, but our creativity and our power. And so all of those things are interconnected in what you said.
Yes. And the unspoken no's. So I had someone recently ask me, I've been told at work that I need to speak up more. How do I do that? And my voice coaching is different than technical. So I do add in technical pieces. So technical voice coaching is going to say, like, breathe here, do this. Your voice is an instrument, show you how to use it.
Mm-hmm.
But if your body doesn't feel safe to do that, if your body doesn't feel safe to expand, if it doesn't feel safe to project, well, you can learn all the technical knowledge you want. It's not going to do it. So this person was someone who grew up in a home where he was not allowed to express at all. And even though he was told, okay, speak up, he couldn't. He couldn't. So in my own experience with the unspoken no's, the body keeps score. And eventually I had so many unspoken no's that my whole sacral region broke down. Extreme nerve pain, extreme muscle pain. I couldn't sit down. I couldn't drive a car. I was in like extreme crisis. And the gift in that was I finally had an excuse to say no.
Mm-hmm.
I finally had an excuse to not answer the phone and be the free therapist, to not go to the thing I didn't want to do. And through that experience of extreme pain and suffering, I started to say no. And once I started to say no, something really incredible happened. My voice changed. I always loved to sing. I grew up in a musical family. But now I can hear when someone has like a frog in their throat or their throat, like their voice is beautiful, but it doesn't come out. And that was my voice. And all of a sudden, after I started saying no, I could like Adele style belt, not through technical training, but through setting boundaries. So it's giving your body permission to take up space.
Mm-hmm. And for so many of us, we're so focused on other people and taking care of their needs that our needs always come second. And voice is a big part of that. Without our voice, we can't speak a boundary. We can't make that clear to someone. And so if we don't have a voice, then we're just putting up with all these things that we don't want. And we know it, which is the hardest part. So I love that as you had that experience, your voice shifted and came back and became so powerful.
Yeah. And when we get into, human biology and why is it that we put everyone else first? And why is it that we don't speak up for ourselves? Well, humans have evolved very quickly over a short amount of time, but our wiring, our biology is still pretty prehistoric and tribal. And not very long ago, you can't survive on your own in the wild as a human. We're not meant to live like that. We don't survive. So to have shame or to be cast out is literally life-threatening, or was literally life-threatening. We're not living there anymore, but our biology has not caught up. So for me, and I know a lot of people listening will resonate, setting a boundary or starting to think about having that conversation, my heart rate would get up so high that I felt like I was going to die. I am an extreme skier, and I have an easier time jumping off a slope into avalanche terrain than I did setting a boundary with someone or speaking up to someone, because that biological wiring of like, I have to belong to survive is so strong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that showed up for me early in my career. I was always getting into roles as manager, supervisor, and I was terrified to correct and coach and give feedback and let people know how they were not doing the correct thing because I was so scared of what was going to come back. And big part of learning to find my voice was to navigate all of those things. And as I'm sure you can appreciate, when you're not able to do those things, you're compensating for it in some way. And then it just catches up to you eventually because you're not able to move that energy.
It will catch up to you in the form of disease or injury or relationship stuff or, like problems at work, but it will catch up to you because the body keeps score and the body keeps the truth.
Yeah.
So we can lie to ourselves and we've been conditioned, but the body keeps your truth. And so for me, I was in very deep denial about some abuse in my childhood. And I kept making up stories to get away from it. But when I sat in it being true, my body would relax.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, after many, many catastrophes, basically, like life got really hard, I kept getting the message I had to speak my truth, but I didn't want to. I wanted to get away from it. And it started to heal me to speak it. Yeah. One of the hardest things when we start to speak our truth is that just because you've healed and decided that you are going to be authentic and speak your truth does not mean that the people in your life are going to respond the way you want to. Some of them will or might, and that will feel great, and a lot of them won't. But what you're doing is you're reparenting your inner child, and you are becoming the protector that you needed growing up. Mm-hmm. And you're letting your nervous system know, I'm here for you. I'm going to set boundaries. But I feel like that's one of the hardest things on this journey is like, yeah, it doesn't mean that magically everything's going to be rainbows and everyone's going to hear you. Yeah.
The other thing that's interesting about what you said earlier was the idea that, we're wired for connection. We're wired to be in community. And when we set a boundary, we might get cut off from that community. But the other interesting thing that I thought of as you said that was we're living in a world that is asking us to be isolated and not living in community. And so I think of like so many people living alone in apartment buildings, and we're literally in each other's energy fields, and yet we don't have any interaction. It's fascinating to me. I mean, I lived in apartment buildings and not even saying hi to each other because we're just so focused on ourselves. What would you say about that?
It's a really weird world. It's a strange time. I grew up in a really tight-knit community in Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, and I'm really grateful about that. But there was also a lot of have to be a certain way to belong. And so I feel like we're in this phase of upgrading our DNA and shifting our biology. And because you can just go get your own food now and your own shelter, it is physically safe to speak your truth and be authentically you, even if that means you might lose some people. And a lot of people are healing health conditions because of that. Also, for me, what's happened in the last couple of years is as I've said no to certain relationships, or I'm not going to give my energy to places where I don't feel heard anymore, new doors are opening. Mm-hmm. I'm talking to people on podcasts. I'm giving workshops on voice. I'm invited to festivals and retreats. So we're more disconnected, but we also have more opportunities. Like you can connect with someone online through Instagram, or like there's more disconnection and there's more opportunity for you to find the right people because you're not stuck in a tribe thousands of miles away from other people. And so it's both, right? Like there's just so much contrast in the world right now, but I'm really trying to look at the positive of like, oh, I'm seeing how I can create my own community and family because I can at this place where you wouldn't have been able to in the past.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that perspective because it's true. We do have access. And I think, during recent years, we discovered that when we were able to connect virtually. And I remember doing an offering during COVID, and there was someone from Europe that joined in, and all of a sudden, my community has grown so vastly because of that one connection, and other people were showing up, and it's limitless, really. Whereas, like you said, if you're living in a tribe, there's limits to what you're going to experience. So it's a great example.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean that it's not hard to spend a lot more. We spend a lot more time alone.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it does feel weird to walk by your neighbors and not say hi. I do online classes and courses, but I am so passionate about connecting people in person and using our voices together because it is
Mm-hmm.
so regulating for the nervous system, and humans are designed for that. We're
Yep.
just kind of in a time now where instead of getting placed into like, well, hey, here's where you're born, you're going to have to figure it out. We have some autonomy and choice. Some of us, I mean, that's totally dependent on your financial status and all that. I get it. But yeah, if you're feeling alone and isolated, which I absolutely have been, I started creating a community for chronically injured and ill people because I needed it. And so we have tools at our disposal to connect, and it looks different than it did in the past. But yeah, we have to find the good, and we have to find the positive and move forward.
Mm-hmm. And tell me more about how sound plays into healing and how sound helps us to regulate and even the why of that piece. I know you mentioned
Mm-hmm.
it a little bit, but if you could go a little bit deeper into that, that'd be awesome.
Sure, yeah. So I am a recovering Catholic. I grew up Irish Catholic, but pretty much every ancient text, including the Bible, will mention sound. In the beginning, there was the word. So everything is frequency. When we get down to quantum physics, nothing is solid, everything is vibrating, everything is frequency. So sound is who you are, and as we shift and change, we can move frequency. So there's some amazing new technologies coming out with frequency machines for healing. And we can use sound to heal ourselves and to heal each other. Music has forever been a healing tool, right? And you don't even need to know the language of a song to resonate with it, right? It's that word resonate. I resonate. This touches me. I might not know the words, but I feel it. So that is basically how sound can work to heal. And if you get into looking at vibration and frequency plates, if you hit the sacred tones of vibration, it can actually like heal you on a cellular level, like restore cellular balance and sacred geometry. So what I have become passionate about in teaching is how to use your own voice to regulate the nervous system. So the voice is connected all through the throat and all the way down through your fascia system and your vagus system. So using your voice, using that hum or toning like we just did, you'll feel it. You'll feel that instant drop in and that grounding. And there's lots of science to back it up, but what's most important is that you can feel it. So once we can tone and breathe from the lower belly, because that's where we get the most oxygen, engage the diaphragm and really use the tools for breath and tone, we can come back into our own resonance, our own harmony. So you can kind of think of like everyone's got a thumbprint, everyone's got a resonance. Sometimes you'll be in one resonance and then all of a sudden you grow, you change, you flip to a new radio station. All of a sudden you're not resonating with the people you used to or your job or maybe even the same foods because you've shifted frequency.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we can all remember a time in our life where we shifted, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so sound helps us to reorganize and reprogram and change our frequency, is what you're saying.
Yeah, to come back into harmony. It's vibration. It's all vibration. We're vibrating
Mm-hmm.
right now. We can't see it, but we're
Mm-hmm.
vibrating right now.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that means that we're also impacted by our environment, where people were impacted by who's around us. And
Yep.
so as we change our frequency, we change who can be around us as well because of that resonance.
We change who can be around us. We can change what foods feel good in our body. We can notice or become more sensitive to things that are not aligned with us. And yeah, there's electromagnetic frequency machines right now that are helping people heal from physical ailments
Mm-hmm.
just by vibrating the cells back into their natural state.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember the name right now, but when I was in the Okanagan, there was a facility that had the screens in the corners. And there was one in Nanaimo, but I think it closed down. And that's based on the work of Tesla and can't remember who else at the moment. But we used to have our men's group in that frequency every week. And it was amazing. At first, it was like you could really feel kind of off center because of it, just adjusting to it. But eventually it just became really great. And that energy was affecting the surrounding neighbors, and it actually had quite the reach.
When you think of the universe, think in terms of frequency and vibration. I believe that's Tesla.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously he had some really powerful technology and free energy technology that got squashed, or he got discredited by the major players in the oil industry. But eventually that is going to come out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we are starting to vibrate at a higher level on planet Earth, and there are forces that are trying to keep us down, but eventually it's coming. I don't know if it's coming in our lifetime, but it is coming.
Yeah. And you mentioned sound and the fascia. And before we started recording, you shared a little bit of a story of what happened for you recently, and I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, so for a long time, I've been following Dr. Masumoto's work. I don't know if you've heard of it. And so Masumoto did a study with water molecules and exposed them to different words and different sounds, and watched how the structure of the water molecule would change. I've been in my healing journey. Doing fascia work has been profoundly helpful and important. And so I'm learning more about it. We don't know much, the mainstream, medical system doesn't know a lot about fascia. We don't talk about it. We talk about the blood and the muscles, but it's a whole system of the human body that is like, if you have a steak and you see the white line through the steak, that's the fascia. And so the fascia is primarily composed of water, and water is cellular memory. So that means the fascia holds emotion and memory. And so it can hold trauma, it can hold good memory, and if there is trauma, it's going to get dehydrated and shut down and get tense. When the fascia gets tense, it's going to put constriction on the muscle and the nerve and the bone, and it can lead to pain. So you can get your muscles all worked and whatever, but I'll tell you, the most gentle fascia massage can open you up in ways that the deep ones never did. So what happened recently was I had a fascia massage. This lady is trained. I mean, she's been working for 30 years. She was in Thailand studying with the Thai, who are very about gentle, and that we don't heal through pushing, where our culture's like, how much can I dig deep? And like, how deep can the needle go? And I'm going to stick this needle you and electrocute you. And that's not how the Thai operate. And so I did a lot of the really intense stuff when I was in my younger years, and now I need the gentle. So she got to a spot in my pelvis where I store a lot of trauma, and I started screaming. I started letting out an angry scream, and it was like burning my throat. If you know what it's like to just scream, it can just really burn your throat, and it was feeling really intense. But what I've learned on my journey of healing and recovery is the concept of alchemy. And so matter cannot be created or destroyed, but we can transform it. So after many years of screaming and feeling traumatized, I've now learned through the voice, wait a second, I'm going to take this. I'm going to take this screen. I'm going to breathe through my lower belly. I'm going to engage my diaphragm, and I'm going to start to tone. And so I turned a very traumatic victim scream into tone while she was opening my fascia. So she was basically opening the channel and the waterways for my toning to work all the way up my body. And I mean, if you've seen, a lake or a plate or any kind of water, if you get close to it and make sound, you can see the vibration go through the sound. So I had this incredible co-creative experience of feeling in my own body how the fascia responded to sound, and how we can alchemize our pain and our sound to take our power back and be, okay, I still need this release, but I am in control. I'm in power. I'm going to release this in a way that feels empowered and not like a victim.
And what did you notice about the sound? Like, how did the sound shift as you went through that experience?
Yeah, so the sound,
compared
like
to the yelling, I mean, like compared.
Yeah. The yelling, when it was just angry and I was yelling, I feel like I was yelling from my chest and my throat got really scratchy. Your vocal cords, your body is an instrument, your voice is an instrument. So if you blow too hard, you can start to fry your vocal cords. And I could feel my vocal cords frying when I was screaming. Then I took my deep breath and expanded my diaphragm and, engaged my voice in the proper way, which is something that I teach on how to really sound in a safe way that's still loud and empowering. Mm-hmm. And it just started kind of energizing and bringing things back. And then as she moved to different parts of my body, my voice would just kind of intuitively drop to different tones. Not with me thinking, it was just like wherever she went, I'm like, okay, it just, my body made the tone that it needed. It was very intuitive. And I just came up just like with like stars in my eyes, like that was something. Same as Masaru Emoto, he would play heavy metal music to a bottle of water, and then he would play classical music. So it was kind of the same concept. I'm taking that scream and I'm transforming it.
Mm-hmm. When you mentioned the fascia and the releases, there's a channel I follow on Instagram. I followed them for quite a while, and they're all about doing different fascia releases. And it's remarkable, like the transformation that you can physically see in someone's being as they're doing these releases. And it looks like quite magical, actually. And some of it is very emotional because, like you said, there's this primal screaming that comes out. But there's a lot of controversy about it, too, because we're so sensitive to witnessing that kind of energy. And we, historically, I guess we suppress it. And so to see it being released, it's hard for people to see that. And for the people that are having that experience, they're feeling the release, they're feeling the flexibility, they're feeling movement again. These teachers talk about that fascia is everything. And so, I mean, there's kind of these two emerging thoughts. One is the nervous system and polyvagal theory, and then fascia right along beside it. It's really interesting. And you're speaking to both.
They're connected, right? Like the fascia, where it's all connected. The fascia is connected to the nervous system. It is connected to your nerves. It can press on your nerves. And yeah, they're like healing the fascia can heal the nervous system, which has been my experience. And yeah, people are really uncomfortable hearing a primal scream or even making one. So many people who are suffering with chronic illness and things like that have probably never been angry. I hadn't ever been angry, ever. And so it can feel really scary to just scream and be angry. But to find the right practitioner where you feel held and you feel safe and you're in a safe space to do that is important. And I spent a couple years just doing the raw, ugly, angry screams before I learned how to alchemize into okay, I'm taking my power back now. Because I don't really believe in sidestepping the shadow. Like we do have to go in there, but we're going in there to understand and learn and ultimately learn like you are the force that has survived everything that's ever happened. You are infinitely powerful and you can alchemize this and change it.
I've been involved in men's groups for about 12 years and anger comes up a lot. And I find it interesting because on my own journey of anger, I'd like to think that I'm more towards the conscious anger, which I believe is more rooted and less expressed outward. And yet so many of us aren't familiar with conscious anger. And so it can be received as unconscious anger that is more aggressive in nature. And that's interesting. It makes sense because our nervous system is going to interpret it the way our nervous system has experienced those energies. So it's interesting to navigate that when we're trying to be more balanced and more aligned and still express our voice. And then it comes back as, well, you're just being angry at me and it's not appropriate. And it's like, oh, interesting, because that's not my experience of it. So it's a journey that we're all on, trying to really realign to what the actual truth is. And I know growing up for myself, I witnessed lots of rage and, alcoholic parents and fighting and all of those things. And so I definitely had an aversion to that. And I think I lost my voice in all of that. And so when we're reclaiming, we tend to have to go to the extreme and then find the middle. Do you notice that?
Absolutely. Swinging the pendulum is real. And I went from being so passive aggressive to just all of a sudden, wah! Right? And people are like, whoa, where does that come from? I didn't know you had any issues with me. Because if you, at that point, it's like, well, if you think about the other person at all, I'm going to go straight into empath and back into like putting them first. So I had to like blow, basically. But anger ultimately in every form is showing us where boundaries have been crossed.
Mm-hmm.
And for people who are not doing the work, then they're going to turn around and put that anger on their kids or whatever. But ultimately, that is anger's purpose. It's showing you where your boundary has been crossed.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, if you're angry at someone, like if you're really angry, you can have a voice practice where, you know, you do it in a safe place, and then you can get it out to the point where you can get your head on to be like, okay, how am I going to communicate with this person in a way that says boundaries? But I don't have to take my anger out on them. You know, I used to have an old dilapidated shed that I would go smash glass in. Like I had ways to get anger out. It's important to get anger out. It's just, how do we do it in a safe and healthy way?
Mm-hmm.
And then also set those boundaries that we need to set so that we're not angry again at that person.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious about your perspective on boundaries, because I know that when I would teach or try to teach boundaries when I worked at the treatment center, often what happened is that talking about boundaries tells people or reminds people of all the boundaries they didn't set. So it's like, it's hard to get to that conversation about healthy boundaries when the nervous system is releasing all of those past times, those no's that didn't get expressed. Tell me about your journey with boundaries and supporting people with sound, because it's such an important piece to reclaim that voice and our boundaries.
Yeah, we can be really angry at ourselves looking back for not setting boundaries. I definitely, like, I can't believe it's not just that they did it, it's that I let them, or that, you know what I mean? Like, we can be really angry at our past self for not setting boundaries. We can be angry at our parents for not protecting us and setting those boundaries when we were young. And like you said with the pendulum, if your nervous system's in a really traumatized space, you might need to set some really sharp boundaries. And that's okay for a period of time where you're healing. You might just be like, I need a full stop. I need a full break until I can figure out who I am without pleasing you. And I can come back into this maybe with the support of a therapist and healthy boundaries. So I do think as we're coming out of that people pleaser, as we're coming out of abuse, the boundaries can be a bit more severe. And then as we grow and we heal, and we kind of get to know ourselves and not just who we are to serve other people, it gets easier and we get maybe less reactive. Yeah. Because originally, like you said, there's so many no's that haven't been expressed that first boundary that came out, bah! And that person who got it didn't deserve all that, but that was so many years of no repressed. And then as you work through it and you take accountability for your own stuff and your own anger, we can learn how to set them, you know. I just set one recently with a friend. I was like, I need to take a step back from old relationships right now to focus on getting the support that I need, and I wish you well. I didn't get into the whole, you didn't do this for me, da, 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 da. It's just like, when we get into that, we're opening a door. And if you're just focused on yourself and you're healing, like, we don't need to open those doors. You can just say, I love you and I need some space until you're ready to have those conversations. Yeah. Don't have to get into the why. Just set them with respect.
Right. Because as many people teach, no is a complete sentence.
Yeah. I have so much guilt every time I set a boundary. And that's part of the journey. And like, you just learn that that's your need to put them first and care. And you care. You don't want to make people feel bad, and that's great. But I was taught to keep the peace until I learned whose peace I was keeping.
Right. And I think most of us, we've been the recipient of a boundary that wasn't delivered nicely or didn't feel good. And so it's like, we don't want to, as sensitives, we don't want to recreate that experience for someone else. And yet, I think one of my favorite teachers uses the phrase, boundaries are a way of being a good friend to ourselves. And I really like that, because it's like, puts it into perspective. It's like, we have to be there for ourselves first. And when we are, we start to feel better about ourselves, even though there might be an impact, but we're actually seeing the truth of who we're in front of when they respond negatively to our boundary. So it's like the truth gets revealed really quickly as well.
Yes. I've been working through this right now because I had to get to the point where my physical life was on the line in order to set boundaries. I had to get to the point where I was actually going to die in order to do it. And honestly, for a lot of people, like I believe as a soul, I set that up so that I absolutely would get this done, because otherwise I'd probably still be a people pleaser.
Mm-hmm.
But something that the injury and the illness I've gone through has taught me is that some people love you for who you are and some people love you for what you give. And when you start to set boundaries, you're going to see who's who. Because when it's not about them and you meeting their needs, you're going to see how they react to that. And it's a really painful and valuable lesson to go through. Yeah.
And it's, for many of us, the intensity of that is what we're avoiding. So the emotional, I refer to it as this emotional wave, that energy that comes towards us after we set a boundary, that's what we're so sensitive to. It's like we get overwhelmed by it. And so when we realize that, oh, that's not mine, it's actually the other person's, and you can just keep that. That's not mine. I don't need to take that on. It takes training to train our nervous system to do that. And once you've done it once, it gets easier, and then it gets easier, and then it gets easier. And I actually had to set a boundary today, and it was so easy. It was just like so natural. It's like, yeah, I'm not actually going to do that because that's not okay for me.
Absolutely. For anyone listening, it gets easier. The more you practice, the more you stay with yourself and understand that people's reactions have nothing to do with you. Your reactions don't tend to have much to do with the other person, but it does get easier.
Yeah. The other piece that you've mentioned, but it's subtle, like this connection to the body, because, I work with a lot of men, and we tend to be this like focus on our, from our heads up, and there's a disconnection to the body. So how does sound help to reconnect to the body in a way that we can realize the benefits of that?
Yeah, I mean, sound is literally getting into your body because you're breathing into your lower belly. You're expanding your diaphragm, which is like your heart and your chest. And you're connecting, all the way to your root and up your whole kind of spinal cord. So for men, I'm going to use the words yin and yang because the words masculine and feminine are pretty loaded in our culture right now. But we all have yin and yang, right? And so men I've heard this quote, men are not taught how to be men, they're taught how not to be girls. And so to disconnect from the feminine, which is the body, which is Mother Earth. And for men, the feminine center is the heart. That's where the emotion lives. And from a very young age, they're just told, don't be like that. Live in your head. But I'm sure you can attest to this. When we run away to our head, it's not that we're not being emotional. It's that we're letting our subconscious completely take over. And so often men will shut down, avoid, react, and that's actually them completely letting their emotions take over. Or when they rage or when they punch, it's not this masculine approach that you think it is. It's actually just avoidance and running away. It's not mastery. So actually dropping into the heart and being in the heart, it's way harder to feel than not feel. It takes way more strength. Way more strength. So I think it's a paradigm shift for men in what strength is and what mastery is. Master your heart, master your emotions, and don't be, a slave to your subconscious, because it will take over when you run away to your head.
Yeah. And you're right. Like, emotion just wants to express it. It comes out sideways, even though someone might say, oh, I'm not angry. Yet it comes out all the time and they don't realize that it's coming out. That was me for sure. Like I would express anger and frustration and not realize I was doing it because I was so in my head. And then when I started to become aware of it, I started to change. It was like, oh, wow. But it's like, it takes us over these energies. They just rise within us and they want to be expressed.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of force to keep them down. And so to be in our head is a protective measure to try and not connect to all that emotion that is wanting to be expressed.
Yeah. And I think maybe for men, like, well, am I not safe if I rage? But that goes back to that. How can you let this out in a safe, productive way, whether it's at the gym or I'm such a huge supporter of men's work in men's circles because men need it, boys need
Mhm.
it, and men leading other men and going out in the woods and like, do what you guys need to do. The world can't see, but
Mhm.
just find healthy and productive ways to let that out. And like someone said, there's two wolves inside you. Which one are you going to feed? And are you letting the wolf pull you by the lead, or are you in control of it? And that's true for all of us, I think. Yeah.
And all of this comes back to connecting and reconnecting to our authentic, aligned self. And how do you notice what shifts and what the impact of that is when we reconnect to that part of ourselves?
Yeah, when you are living in truth, you're just going to feel a lot more grounded. When you are wondering what's true, you can feel it in the body, you know? You'll feel the truth in your body. Like I said, I had some deep denial about things that happened in my childhood, and when I let them be true, my whole system relaxed. Not because it was an easy, fun truth, but because it was true. So the more we come into alignment with truth, the more we come into our body. And the more we come into the body, the more we're able to listen to what's actually true. When we're living in our head, I had someone ask me this. It's like, well, how do I know what's true? And it's like telling me about X that was abusive, right? Well, was your stomach tight around that person? Oh, yeah, maybe. But when we live so far in our head, we can't hear our body's cues. Our body is always telling us when things are off, when things are not in alignment. But we have to learn to come back into the body to hear it. When we start to come back in, it can be very uncomfortable because
Mhm.
we've been through some heavy trauma, right? So there's no getting around. There's no around, there's only through, and people can avoid doing the work to get back into their body because you are going to have to face that pain of what the body has been through, but then it gets you back in touch with your compass. Your body's always going to tell you what's true and what's best for you. And I am still learning to listen. It's a lifetime learning, but we get better at it. We do
Yeah.
get better. Yeah.
I listened to a teacher who talked about all of the trauma, all the things we store in our body as white noise. So it's like the noise that actually prevents our intuition and those inner instincts from being able to rise up. So the moment you start to clear that noise, that white noise, all of the sudden we get more in touch with our intuition, and that voice gets to speak louder, and we can hear it because it's not having to fight through all that noise. And I really like that, and it feels like that's what you're saying, that's part of what gets reclaimed on this journey.
Absolutely. And fear can block our intuition. And there's a reason that the media and all the forces that be are keeping us in a state of fear so that we can't feel our truth or connect with it as
Hmm.
easily.
Yeah.
And that's real. Yeah. Being in fight or flight it's going to be harder to hear that voice. So how can we can use sound, we can use breath work, toning. I mean, every ancient med civilization has used chant and mantra to
Hmm.
go into a state of trance where we can access that and get back to it. And that's something that I do when I'm in fight or flight is I'll chant or I'll do a mantra to get back
Hmm.
to my center.
Yeah. And you're referring to like medicine that's 5,000 plus years old. That's been,
More than that. Yeah,
yeah,
way, way, way old. As old as
yeah,
humans, because in the beginning there was sound.
right.
We are sound. Like it's as old as we are.
So this feels like a good place to pause our conversation. We've covered lots of ground. I really appreciate all the places we've gone. I always like to close with the same question. So I'll ask you this question, which is, what is one simple way that someone could connect with the sacred today?
I'm going to say through sound because that's what the podcast has all been about. So I am going to invite them, to do that little drop in that we did at the beginning to hum and to tone, maybe just a simple om. If you've ever been to a yoga class and you felt the power when we all om together. Yeah, I'm going to invite you to connect with the sacredness of your own creation, your own ability to create, because sound is you as the creator creating. You are the divine.
I love that. Thank you. And we're going to share all your information, or I'm going to share all your information in the show notes so people will be able to reach out to you on Instagram and your website. And really grateful that you took the time to have this conversation. Thank you for sharing your perspectives and your work. And I really enjoyed our time together.
Thank you so much, Ross. It's been so wonderful to be here. And yes, you can reach out to me at wombreclamation.com. If you're interested in any of my upcoming courses, classes, events, I would love to make sound with you.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Thank you for joining us on Sacred Sundays. I hope something in today's offering spoke to your spirit, stirred something true, or simply gave you a moment to breathe. If this conversation resonated, please subscribe, rate, or share. It truly helps this work reach the people who are meant to find it. If you'd like to step inside my world a little further, I host a free live practice 3 mornings a week called Start With You. Just 20 minutes on Zoom to return to your own energy. Everything you need can be found at the link in the show notes. Until next time, may your day be slow and sacred.